What is the major barrier against wide deployment of latent diffusion models, LDMs, in real-world applications according to the paper?
The major barrier against wide deployment of latent diffusion models, LDMs, in real-world applications according to the paper, is their low sampling efficiency. This inefficiency stems from the inherent reliance of LDMs on multi-step sampling to produce high-quality outputs, where the total cost of sampling is the product of sampling steps and the cost of each step. Specifically, the go-to approach involves using the 50-step DDIM sampling, which, despite ensuring output quality, still requires a relatively long latency for completion on modern mobile devices. This contrasts with single-shot generative models like generative adversarial networks, GANs, that bypass the need for iterative refinement, highlighting the pressing need for efficiency optimization in LDMs to enhance their practical applications. The paper emphasizes the importance of improving sampling efficiency in LDMs to overcome this significant barrier to their widespread deployment.
How does the operational latency of LDMs differ from single-shot generative models like generative adversarial networks, GANs?
The operational latency of latent diffusion models, LDMs, differs from single-shot generative models like generative adversarial networks, GANs, in that LDMs rely on multi-step sampling to produce high-quality outputs, while single-shot generative models bypass the need for iterative refinement. Specifically, LDMs typically use a 50-step DDIM sampling process, which ensures output quality but requires a longer latency for completion on modern mobile devices. On the other hand, single-shot generative models like GANs do not require iterative refinement and thus have lower operational latency compared to LDMs. The need for efficiency optimization in LDMs arises due to their reliance on multi-step sampling, which contrasts with the more streamlined approach of single-shot generative models. This difference in operational latency highlights the challenge faced by LDMs in real-world applications and underscores the importance of improving their sampling efficiency for practical deployment.
What recent advancements have been made in optimizing the efficiency of LDMs?
Recent advancements in optimizing the efficiency of latent diffusion models, LDMs, have primarily focused on developing faster network architectures with comparable model size to reduce the inference time per step. Additionally, innovations have been made in improving sampling algorithms to allow for using fewer sampling steps. Furthermore, diffusion distillation techniques have been introduced, which simplify the process by learning multi-step sampling results in a single forward pass and then broadcasting this single-step prediction multiple times. These distillation techniques leverage the redundant learning capability in LDMs, enabling the distilled models to assimilate additional distillation knowledge. Despite these efforts, the sampling efficiency of smaller, less redundant models has not received adequate attention.
How do diffusion distillation techniques simplify the sampling process in LDMs?
Diffusion distillation techniques simplify the sampling process in latent diffusion models, LDMs, by enabling the learning of multi-step sampling results in a single forward pass, which is then broadcasted multiple times. This process allows for distilling the knowledge acquired from multiple sampling steps into a single-step prediction, reducing the need for iterative refinement during sampling. By leveraging the redundant learning capability in LDMs, the distilled models can assimilate additional distillation knowledge, enhancing their efficiency in generating high-quality outputs. Despite the use of diffusion distillation, smaller models maintain competitive performance against larger distilled models when sampling budgets are constrained, indicating that distillation does not fundamentally alter the scaling trends in LDMs.
What is the empirical focus of the paper regarding the scaling properties of LDMs?
The empirical focus of the paper regarding the scaling properties of latent diffusion models, LDMs, is to investigate how the size of LDMs impacts their sampling efficiency across various model sizes and downstream tasks. The paper empirically explores the scaling trends within LDMs, particularly emphasizing how smaller models may surpass larger models in image quality under an equivalent sampling budget. It also delves into how the size of pre-trained text-to-image LDMs influences their sampling efficiency across diverse downstream tasks, such as real-world super-resolution and subject-driven text-to-image synthesis. The study demonstrates a clear link between compute resources and LDM performance, showcasing that pre-training performance scales with training compute and downstream performance scales with pre-training quality. Additionally, the paper analyzes the effect of classifier-free guidance (CFG) rate on sampling efficiency and compares the performance of scaled LDMs using different diffusion samplers to assess generalizability. The research also explores the impact of diffusion distillation on the sampling efficiency of LDMs, highlighting that smaller models exhibit higher sampling efficiency despite reduced modeling capability, even after distillation.
What key findings are highlighted in the paper regarding the scaling of LDMs in text-to-image generation and downstream tasks?
The key findings highlighted in the paper regarding the scaling of latent diffusion models, LDMs, in text-to-image generation and downstream tasks are as follows. 1. Pre-training performance scales with training compute, showing a clear link between compute resources and LDM performance, indicating potential for further improvement with increased scaling. 2. Downstream performance scales with pre-training, demonstrating a strong correlation between pre-training performance and success in downstream tasks, with larger models outperforming smaller models even with extra training. 3. Smaller models sample more efficiently initially, surpassing larger models in image quality for a given sampling budget, but larger models excel in detail generation when computational constraints are relaxed. 4. The choice of sampler does not change the scaling efficiency, with smaller models consistently demonstrating superior sampling efficiency regardless of the diffusion sampler used. 5. Smaller models sample more efficiently on downstream tasks with fewer steps, extending their advantage in sampling efficiency to tasks requiring less than 20 sampling steps. 6. Diffusion distillation does not change scaling trends significantly, as smaller models maintain competitive performance against larger distilled models when sampling budgets are constrained, indicating that distillation does not fundamentally alter scaling trends. These findings collectively emphasize the importance of understanding the scaling properties of LDMs in text-to-image generation and downstream tasks, showcasing the efficiency and performance trade-offs associated with different model sizes and sampling strategies.
How do smaller models initially outperform larger models in image quality, according to the paper?
Smaller models initially outperform larger models in image quality due to their superior sampling efficiency for a given sampling budget. The paper explains that smaller latent diffusion models, LDMs, exhibit better image quality than larger models when computational constraints are in place, because smaller models can produce high-quality outputs more efficiently within the same sampling budget. This advantage of smaller models is attributed to their ability to surpass larger models in image quality for a given sampling budget, especially when using less than 20 sampling steps. The text highlights that despite the advancements in diffusion models and techniques like diffusion distillation, smaller models consistently demonstrate superior sampling efficiency, regardless of the diffusion sampler used. Additionally, the paper emphasizes that smaller models can outperform larger models in terms of image quality when the computational constraints are maintained, showcasing the initial advantage of smaller models in generating high-quality images efficiently.
What is the impact of the size of pre-trained text-to-image LDMs on their sampling efficiency across diverse downstream tasks?
The impact of the size of pre-trained text-to-image latent diffusion models, LDMs, on their sampling efficiency across diverse downstream tasks is significant. The paper demonstrates that smaller pre-trained LDMs initially outperform larger models in image quality for a given sampling budget. However, larger pre-trained models surpass smaller ones in detail generation when computational constraints are relaxed. This trend is consistent across various downstream tasks, such as real-world super-resolution and subject-driven text-to-image synthesis, e.g. Dream Booth. The study reveals that smaller pre-trained LDMs exhibit superior sampling efficiency, especially when using fewer than 20 sampling steps. Despite efforts to improve diffusion models through techniques like diffusion distillation, smaller pre-trained models maintain competitive performance against larger distilled models when sampling budgets are constrained. Overall, the size of pre-trained text-to-image LDMs directly impacts their sampling efficiency, with smaller models showing advantages in efficiency under certain constraints, but larger models excelling in detail generation when resources allow.
How does the paper analyze the effect of classifier-free guidance, CFG, rate on text-to-image generative models?
The paper analyzes the effect of classifier-free guidance, CFG, rate on text-to-image generative models by experimentally determining the optimal CFG rate for each model size and sampling steps using either FID or CLIP score. The study found that changes in CFG rates impact visual quality more significantly than prompt semantic accuracy. The researchers sampled the scaled models using different CFG rates ranging from 1.5 to 8.0 and compared their quantitative and qualitative results. Visual results of two models under varying CFG rates were presented, highlighting the impact on visual quality. The paper demonstrated that changes in CFG rates have a notable impact on visual quality and used the FID score for quantitative determination of the optimal CFG rate performance. The analysis aimed to understand how adjusting the CFG rate influences the balance between visual fidelity and semantic alignment with text prompts in text-to-image generative models.
What are the key observations regarding the scaling efficiency of LDMs with different diffusion samplers?
The key observations regarding the scaling efficiency of latent diffusion models, LDMs, with different diffusion samplers are as follows. 1. Smaller models consistently demonstrate superior sampling efficiency compared to larger models, regardless of the diffusion sampler used, including deterministic DDIM, stochastic DDPM, and higher-order DPM solver++. 2. Smaller models tend to outperform larger models in terms of image quality for a given sampling budget, especially when using fewer sampling steps. 3. The advantage of smaller models in sampling efficiency extends to downstream tasks, such as super-resolution, particularly when using less than 20 sampling steps. 4. Even with diffusion distillation, smaller models maintain competitive performance against larger distilled models when sampling budgets are constrained, indicating that distillation does not fundamentally alter the scaling trends of LDMs. 5. The scaling properties of LDMs remain consistent regardless of the diffusion sampler used, with smaller models generally achieving better performance than larger models under equivalent sampling costs. 6. The DPM solver++ sampler generally outperforms the default DDIM sampler in image quality, while the stochastic DDPM sampler produces lower quality results than DDIM with fewer sampling steps. 7. The consistent trend across different diffusion samplers reinforces the notion that smaller LDMs exhibit higher sampling efficiency compared to larger models, highlighting the robustness of the observed scaling efficiency in LDMs.